Hey, this is Derek Depker of bestsellersecrets.com. You ever find yourself dreading the technical aspects of authorship? Maybe that's setting up a website. I teach audiobook creation, so maybe you're thinking about creating an audiobook and you go, oh man, this seems all really technical. It could be something about the formatting or even just general processes of writing and publishing and marketing a book. There's technical things to it. And one of the things I hear from a number of authors, you might be able to relate, is the whole I don't like the technical stuff, the technology or any of those things, especially if you're a creative type, right? You might just prefer the self-expression and the fun fun stuff. The technical stuff might not be the same thing for you as the fun stuff. Well, I have a couple things to share with you that's going to help you embrace the technical side of things, relieve some of that overwhelm, some of that anxiety, and give you a really practical tip. One of the things that I realized that I was doing all throughout my journey that really helped me actually have some fun and learn things a lot quicker and be able to be more productive when it comes to technical things. But I also want to start with an important mindset distinction. And this comes really to the root of it, where this is what separates, to sound cliche, those who fail from those who succeed. Right? I'm not, you can almost say the losers from the winners. I'm not quite that harsh about it, but from a certain standpoint, you could say those who fail and those versus those who succeed. There's one key distinction. Okay, now before I get into that, I want to point out that I have a lot of empathy for people who, if you're working hard at something, maybe, I've been in situations like working on my website and there's plugins and things that aren't working and I'm pushing buttons and refreshing stuff and there's glitching out and I'm like looking through customer support manuals and contacting customer support and all that sort of stuff. Like sometimes it can drive a person crazy if you've ever been through something like that. And I have total empathy for someone who goes through that situation. Here's who I don't have empathy for. Here's what pisses me off, okay, is when someone watches a video or reads something and go, oh, that seems too technical. Oh, that seems too hard. That's not for me. And then they don't even do it. They don't even give it an honest shot. And here's why. I'm going to explain with a quick story why that's an issue. Okay, so I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. When you come into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I remember my first class, the way it works, we're standing there, we're all in line, watching the professor, and the professor brings a student out. It's like, okay, I'm going to show you this first move. So it shows the move, and it's all the stuff I've never seen before. And it's multiple pieces. You grab here with this arm, then you grab here, and you got to make sure, does your thumb go in? Does it out? Is it overhand, underhand? You grab around here, you twist here, you bring them down, hip escape, do this. And it's like all this stuff, and it's like, okay, so that's it. Let me do it again. Do all these different things. And I'm like, I've never done this before. I have no idea what's going on. That's too technical. I'm now a blue belt, a couple years into it. It's still too technical the first time I see anything. The first time I watch someone do something, even if they repeat it multiple times, it's always too technical. When does it become not too technical? When I do it over and over again. That's how you learn. And it sounds obvious, but here's the thing. Like you get in, and sometimes I'm with the partner, and it's like all I remember, like, okay, man, all I remember is I grab you here. Like, what's next? And then the partner, if they know, might help. Or like I get halfway through it, I'm like, I remember this first part where I grab here, and then I bring this arm around, and then you do something. Okay, so I'm gonna twist this up. Okay, now I'm stuck, or this isn't working. Like I'm trying to rotate my body. They're not moving. What's going on? Okay, professor, can you come over and help? So the professor comes over and helps. And the professor has this outside perspective, can see my blind spots and goes, so you gotta like pull your elbow in. You gotta twist this up. Or no, you're grabbing with the wrong hand. It's supposed to be over here. Okay, right? That's the learning process. That's learning anything virtually, right? The watching the professor is like an extremely tiny minuscule amount of learning and developing a skill, which is what you're doing. So somehow I'm amazed that some people have gotten through life not realizing that you just screw a bunch of shit up until you get it. That's the learning process. And I'm not blaming anyone for that though, because isn't that what our school system teaches, that it's wrong to make a mistake? But what is learning? You're just making a bunch of mistakes until you eventually get it and getting feedback and correction on it. So what happens is All that is too technical. That's the mind. It's mind playing games, mind saying I don't want to screw something up, I don't want to mess something up. What if it doesn't matter if you screw it up? What if it doesn't matter? Just maybe you see the 10-step process and you're like, all of that confused me. But can you get to step one? Can you do step one and then pause and then go back and watch a video a couple times and then get to step two? And then go back and watch a video a couple times, get to step three, and so on. Right? You can do this, and it's important, not that you have to do all the technical stuff. You might be able to outsource some of that. What's really important is that you have the mindset that you learn through action and implementation, not through consuming information. I could sit there and watch all day long. The professor, here's a move, here's another move. I could watch videos on jiu-jitsu. I could spend years watching videos, but I would never get good at jiu-jitsu. I'd be less competent at jiu-jitsu after a year of watching videos than I would just going through 1 hour of actual training, 1 hour of actual in the trenches doing something. Okay. And it reminds me of another story I heard, and this is something I see with authors. I get questions, especially on webinars. What about this? What about that? What about that? And in the back of my mind, I'm just like, if you just did it, you wouldn't have these questions. Right? And I know it's hard to see, and I've been there, right? I can relate. I have all these questions. My mind goes crazy with what ifs. Okay, well, what if this happens? What about that? I got to be prepared for all these scenarios. So if you're like that, if you're an overanalyzer, a fellow overanalyzer, I can relate. And what really stuck with me, though, is a story I heard from one of my mentors. It's actually two of my mentors in this story. It was a man named Andy and Brandon. And so Andy was learning from Brandon. Brandon was Andy's mentor. And he was teaching about like the sales process. And Andy had these questions. Okay, Brandon, what about this? And he was starting to ask him some different questions. And Brandon just like paused. He's like, did you actually go through this process and do one of these sales calls? And he's like, well, no, not yet. I had some questions first. He's like, no, I'm not answering any of your questions. Go do it first and then come back with your questions. So he just shut him out. And then Andy's like, oh, okay. So Andy goes and he makes the call. And he comes back to Brandon. He's like, I get it. All those questions I had were irrelevant. By going through the process, he realized and he learned like Brandon knew that those were low quality questions. Brandon knew those were the questions of someone who had never actually given the process an actual shot. Because when you go through the process, the questions answer themselves, or you realize that they're irrelevant. They're not even actual legitimate concerns. And then by going through the process, then you get a higher quality level of question that's much more about the distinctions and the nuances. Okay. Now, if I was in jiu-jitsu class and I just watched the professor do it and they go, are you able to do that? I'd be like, no. Do you have questions? I'm like, I have a ton of questions, but I don't ask them. Why? Because I know most of those questions are going to get answered by doing it first. Okay. So do it, then come back with the questions. So here's where I have empathy for people who put in the effort and then they have questions. I have very little empathy or patience for people who don't even give it a shot, and then they're sitting there with a million questions because I know that's just their mind going crazy. Okay, I do have some empathy for like, okay, I can relate to that, but I go like, I'm not answering these questions. Do it first, right? So as a mindset, I have sympathy for people who put in effort and then quit just because they realize it's not right for them. That's okay. I don't say quitting is a bad word. If you really give it an honest shot and you go, look, maybe it's designing my own website is just too much. Great. Hire someone. That's fine. Right? You put in a lot of effort. You go, this just isn't for me. Okay. I have no sympathy for people who quit before they sweat. For people who watch something or read something, you go, that seems too hard. And then they take themselves out before they even begin. Before they even get in the arena, before they even put in any sort of effort or action. I have no sympathy for that. And that might sound harsh, but it's like, I hope, I have love for people who do that. I hope that they succeed, but they can only succeed when they shift that mindset and go, I'm going to learn through action. I'm going to learn through experience. I'm going to learn on a cellular level when I actually get in there and do the work. And it might sound cliche about taking action, and it's probably common. I mean, really, it's common sense that you learn through action. But again, I know for myself, there's plenty of times where I took myself out before even getting in the game. Just let my mind take myself out. Okay, so if you're a human being, it's okay. You probably have fallen for this. It's just a mind game. And that's what I'm shooting this video for, is to remind you that's just a mind game you learn through action. If you get out of your mind and get into your body, and that's when you'll learn. So here's a quick tip. Here's a strategy that I use that I realize has helped me tremendously when it comes to overcoming technical challenges and just relieving a lot of the overwhelm and overload that's out there. What that is I'm thinking, what's the fastest path to just get one done? Just get something done. Okay, so maybe that's about how do I record and edit and upload a YouTube video? So I got to figure out the recording process and the sound and this and that, and I'm going through a training. I go, let me just do a really crappy one, but just get through the process. Just do one crappy thing from start to finish and try to get through the process as soon as possible. Because I know once I've done it once, then it's just rinse and repeat. Like, let me just get, clunkily through this jiu-jitsu move. But once I've done it once, second time would be a little better, third time even better. And then eventually it's just like knocking it out on autopilot. And that only takes like 5-10 minutes in jiu-jitsu. And sometimes it only takes, just a short amount of time. But if you think your first one has to be perfect, that's where people slow themselves down. So this applies to small scale things. Like, again, maybe it's just recording. How do I record a video? How do I get a podcast episode uploaded? How do I set up whatever? Right? Or it could be like a whole book. I'm really grateful my first book wasn't that amazing on Amazon, and I didn't put a lot of work into like marketing it and making it all that sexy. I just wanted to get the process down. Okay, how do I take the idea? How do I format it into a Kindle book? How do I get it uploaded? Like, what is this whole thing? And then I got it done and I go, oh, okay, so that's how you publish a book. I kind of got my mind around. I kind of know the whole A to Z process. All that uncertainty about what I'm getting myself into, I now see clearly. Okay, now let me do it again. This time, let me be more conscious about some of these things. Let me spend a little more time figuring out the best keywords to use. Let me make sure I got, the title better in the description. Let me tweak the formatting and make it look a little prettier, right? So that was the second book, or it could be going and doing version 2.0 of your original book. Right? So make a crappy version 1.0. Okay? The crappiest, quickest version 1.0 just to get something complete. And then go back and refine it. Then go back and work towards excellence. What this will do is it'll get you taking action, get you through the process, get you comfortable making the move. And then you might spend, just like I do in jiu-jitsu, the next few months actually refining it and perfecting it. This is Derek Depker with bestsellersecrets.com, wishing you the best. Take care.